Last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Live in the Al Nicoletti studio, Mark Marcellus. Mark, man, what's going on, brother?
I'm going to go out and I'm going to earn the beans. I'm going to go out and I'm going to hire people to count the beans. How do you do it? One Airbnb at a time. I use virtual assistants, and that really helped, keep my costs down so that we could grow and expand rapidly. That's what you have to understand, is that you're going to have some down months and you're going to have some up months. And it's like that in entrepreneurship to begin with. It's all about the people that you meet. Past performance does not guarantee future success. It's a huge mistake to take a 4-bedroom home and just put 4 beds in it.
You know, I always have that one gift for them at the end. And for you, I got make sure, like, we got the Al Nicoletti t-shirt.
The Al Nicoletti. I love it.
There you go.
Big Al.
There you go.
I love it.
Yeah, man. I want to make sure we get that out there for you. Thank you so much for being on the show. Absolutely love it. If you missed any of that episode last week with Mark Marcellus in studio, in the Al Nicoletti studio, you got to go back and check out that episode. It's so special when we have the guests actually come in the studio, right? We started that probably about February or March when the studio was ready in person, and we had the mic set up, and we've had several guests come in person. And I was so excited that the schedule worked out so well for Mark coming in. So if you missed it, you got to go check it out. It's on Facebook. It's under YouTube, under Al Nicoletti. And we just did an Instagram post about the recap, so you can check it out. I think the link's in there. And you can always catch the Al Nicoletti Show on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play. You just type in Al Nicoletti Show and you'll see it right there. And I bring on these guests. I mean, we've had so many guests from season 1, season 2, season 3. So if you miss any of them, or you want to go back and learn something, because some of the episodes, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not putting a cap on the length of my episodes right now, because we want the guests to really come to the table, bring it out, bring all that education and information that can help everybody level up their game. And today, the guest is no different. He is going to bring the fire when it comes to creative financing. And I can't wait to introduce him. And we're going to get into so many different things on either the note side, creative financing, seller terms, and how you can really capitalize on this market. So I know you all know it's Wednesday night, 9 p.m. I love seeing you all out there. Make sure you interact with the show tonight. You know I love the followers, the fans, everybody that comments, and we'll make sure we get to you. But make sure you interact, ask questions, because when we bring on a guest like this live, this is a unique opportunity to ask that guest these questions. So, I'm ready to go. Let's do this whole thing. So let's rock it. Hey, everybody. My name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their community, and a lot more people now that are on the show and all over the country. And it's not even just on Florida, right? Like, we're bringing so many people on that it doesn't matter where they're from. Florida, Georgia, New York, doing things in Airbnb and seller financing, creative financing, commercial property. And that was a huge one with Neil Timmons, and bringing on big guests that can take your company to the next level. Let's do this. So on the show today, I'm so excited. I don't know if you all can tell. 9 p.m., I get in the studio. Mike and I are setting up. It's always an exciting time because there's always crazy stuff that goes behind the scenes of running a studio. That's a podcast for another day. But on the show today, I got Nick the Note Guy, Nick Legamaro. This guy is always on fire. So it's crazy where you meet people, right? Where you first initially connect. And I met Nick at the Family Mastermind. And I remember, I don't know how it happened, but I remember I think I was just sitting down in family, and I remember Nick was right next to me. And from the minute we connected and hit it off, we loved it. I mean, I love this guy. He's full of knowledge, full of energy, and is always passionate when he talks about creative financing, seller terms, and really getting in this golden opportunity market. And we're going to dive in on so much because he loves getting into creative structuring and financing. We're going to talk about the rising interest rates in the ever-changing market and how this market right now is gold for creative financing. and the way you can structure your deal. The market is prime with all these interest rates that are rising. Who knows? Maybe the Fed will raise them again. We have no idea. But right now, it's huge. And he's going to get into how to think, act, and be the bank. So it's not just going to be about how you buy the real estate, but how you are the bank when you come to the transaction and how you can fund and lend and do all that kind of stuff. It's crazy the kind of stuff he'll talk about. And he will get into how you can generate cash now, cash flow later, and with infinite ROI. I mean, who doesn't want to learn about that, having infinite ROI? That's huge right there. And he's going to talk about, I thought this was a great hook point when he told me this backstage, how to be a Leinlord, not a landlord. Let that sink in for a little bit. How to be a Leinlord, not a landlord. And I know so many people get into all this stuff with long-term leases, short-term Airbnbs, but what is it like to be the bank, have that control it, don't just own it. So I can't wait to get into this. And without further ado, let's welcome him to the show. Nick Legamaro, Nick the Note Guy. What's up, man?
What's up, Al? Man almighty. Man, I'm
You know I bring the energy.
It's all good. Hey, how you doing?
So, yeah, great, man. I'm so happy we were able to do this. And it's the market conditions are primed for this kind of conversation, right? And I know we were talking a couple months ago on Zoom and you were like, man, I've waited years for this opportunity. And there's investors that have been in the game like you more than 20 years that are always waiting for conditions to be ripe in what they do and they're passionate about. And I can't wait to dive in, man. I'm just happy you're here.
Well, thanks, dude, man. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple weeks in person, man, and breaking some bread and sharing some stories, man. It's
always.
I love this, man. I just got people. I just got a call today from one of my biggest underwriters, which are RMLO, which is a residential mortgage loan originator. And we'll get into that in a minute. And she goes, "Hey, Nick, I'm just curious. Are you, how do you feel about the market condition? Are you nervous?" And I go, "Absolutely not. This is like Christmas in July for us right now." And we'll get into the details and get in the weeds on why that truly is. I go, "We're not traditional lenders. We don't deal with traditional buyers. The buyers that we work with, they couldn't go get a Bank of America loan at 3% a year ago anyway.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. That's not who we service." So we'll get into the backstory and we'll work our way into it. But yes, I just love where we are right now. It is absolutely an incredible opportunity. It really can turn into wealth, infinite, generational wealth opportunities. And you got to strike when the iron's hot, man. And, where people are running away from, real estate in a lot of different ways. The ones that have been around a while. Look, I've been in real estate before the 2008 crash. A lot of people were not. I speak all the time, and I'm on stages in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. And one of the very first questions I always ask is, how many people were doing real estate before 2008? And almost always it's less than what you can count on two hands. It's less than 10. It really truly is. So they don't even know what they don't know. And that's, as an elder statesman and a person that's been in real estate for over 20 years now, and along with my partner Eric Sage with Inside the Creative Dealmaker, we've done thousands of transactions. We went through this, man. We were ready, man. I was ready for this 5 years ago. And again, it was like walking around with mud on my face because now I said, well, I told you. I don't wish bad will on anybody, but you have to be prepared to make a pivot, make a shift, redirect your energy and your effort, and really figure out how to monetize the opportunities when they become available. And hopefully we'll be able to share that with the viewers and listeners tonight.
Yeah, let's do this so we get everybody kind of a preview and an idea of like where you had started and where you went and where you are now, because that's always so important. I mean, you're Nick the Note Guy or Nick Legamaro. I mean, like, you've been doing this.
A lot of things, Al. I mean, that's the problem.
I love it.
Jack of all, master of none. No, that's not actually. It's quite the opposite. I'm a master of one thing and one thing only. It's creatively structuring notes to get paid in perpetuity and get maximum value and premium value for the notes that we create. And we'll explain it on how that works and how anybody that's considering becoming a bank or writing their own notes, some of the tips and tricks and things that they should really consider before going down that path.
Yeah. So let's give everybody the preview. So Nick, tell everybody who you are, where did you start in real estate? What was that pivotal moment? Maybe that transition through 08 where there was all those things that were going on with the banks, and where are you today?
Yeah. So I started in real estate back in early 2001. That's about when I started. And back then, Al, we didn't have the luxury of this broadcast, for example, or all the educational materials, or even the power of the internet with data and all the things that are readily available. Can you imagine trying to do what you do now in probate 20 years ago and without the infrastructure and the systems? It'd be you probably wouldn't even do it, right? Well, back then we got foreclosures off an Excel spreadsheet. Seriously, there were no meetups, there was no Facebook, there was none of that stuff. And I learned from somebody that had more experience than me at the time. At the end of the day, looking back in retrospect, they probably weren't a whole lot smarter than me. They were just smarter than me, and I took that for what it was worth, and so on. So I got into real estate, and what I did back then, you could buy portfolios from banks. You could buy REOs from banks directly. And the person I was getting that I partnered with, or I got deal flow from, that's exactly what she did. She'd buy 20, 30 houses in a portfolio from a bank, and then she'd chop them and sell them off in onesies and twosies. I would buy them, I'd fix them, and I'd sell them to another investor. They would turn them into a rental property. 100% transactional model, just bananas. And then I did that for a while, and then in 2007, 8 hit, and it was a scary time, man. I got away fairly unscathed. I mean, it hurt, but it knocked me down, but it didn't knock me out. And where a lot of people and business relationships folded up shop. Al, I remember this. I had 3 deals at the closing table, 2 to buy and 1 to sell when the day hit. And I think it was August of, I don't know the exact date. I think it was August 2008 when Obama came down with the hammer, basically. And literally in minutes, companies shut their doors. The money wasn't there. There was no money to be had. Deals didn't get funded, and deals were lost, and that's happened. So I got really lucky to get out fairly unscathed, and I was scared, man. I didn't know any different. What to expect. We didn't know what was going to happen. Didn't even really know the root cause of it like we do today. So, but I knew that wealth was created from real estate. All the millionaires that are on this planet, the majority of them come from it. Became millionaires because of real estate in some capacity, right? I knew that was the answer. So I took about 1.5 years off, and when I came back, I went to work back in the corporate world. Corporate world sucks, man. Don't wish that on anybody. It's just, but it's the necessary evil just to support ourselves until we can become, entrepreneurs and be able to do what we want to do. And I got back in by that time, when 2010 came around, there was a lot more information. There was educational products, there was materials, there was meetups and groups and things like that. And I said, you know what? I didn't have a big stack of capital to work with. I pretty much, I was down to maybe $25,000. It was fairly small relative to being able to do real estate without, doing a lot of heavy lifting, right? Without being able to have to do a lot of stuff yourself. So I did a lot of research, and I go, you know what? I didn't like what I did the first time. And that's when wholesaling was really becoming very popular, right? So there's probably a lot of people in here that do wholesaling, and we'll talk about why the wholesaling model is a great entry level strategy for what we do. Okay. But I got into wholesaling, and the very first deal, I was talking about the very first deal that I got. So back then, and I was in the Dallas, Texas market. Back then, you could go buy a list of properties that were under $50,000, $100,000.
Wow.
It doesn't exist anymore, but that's the way it was, right?
Where's that now?
So I got my yellow letters, and bought my list, and got my postcards and sent them out. And I'm sure I did it all wrong. And I got a phone call. I got a phone call off my first list, and she goes, "Hey, I got your postcard. I'm thinking about selling my house. And I asked all the wrong questions. And I go, well, how much do you want? And so she answered it. And she goes, I want $25,000. $25,000. Can't imagine what this house looks like for $25,000, right? But back then, just add a one in front of everything. So it's a $125,000 house now, right? Because people are going, well, you couldn't do $25,000 house. Well, it was, okay? So she goes, but you can't. I have tenants in there. I'm retiring from General Motors. I'm moving to California to be closer to my grandkids. I go, fine. She goes, it's rented right now, but please don't disturb the tenants. How many times we've heard that?
Yeah.
Please don't disturb my tenants. They don't even know I'm selling the house. And I go, okay, no problem. So I get in my car. I drive 30 minutes across town. It's in a suburb called Grand Prairie, Texas, and it's a little bitty 2-bedroom, 1-bath POS, man. I mean, and when I drive up to the front of it, I go, okay, I guess that's what a $25,000 house looks like, because it was not what, and there were people living in it. I go, oh man, this is just not what I signed up for. So I drive to the end of the corner, and I see a sign. It says Vende Casa. And I know enough Spanish to be dangerous. I knew what Vende Casa meant. And so I call the number on the sign, and she goes, hola. And I go, do you speak English? Because I don't speak Spanish very well. She goes, yes. I go, hey, I see your sign and that you have a house for sale, but I have a house for sale. Would you be interested in it? And she goes, well, how much you want for it? And I go, $35,000. Like, I don't even have this thing under contract yet, Al. I go, I didn't think anything of it. This is literally my first dialogue and conversation with both a seller and potentially a buyer. And she goes, let me get back to you. I go, but you can't go knock on the door because there's tenants and I don't want you to disturb my tenants. I was really, really protective of my tenants at this time. And she goes, no problem. So I'm getting my car driving back, and I get a phone call literally less than 30 minutes later. And I go, hello. And she goes, hey, I got some buyers at the house, and they're looking, and I go, what? Don't worry. They're just looking at the outside. She goes, since they can't get inside the house, they wanted to know if you would take $32,000 cash for the house. And I go, $32,000, like I'm insulted or something. Really, it was like, right. $32,000 is more shock than anything. And I go, well, possibly. I go, how much do you want? She goes, I want $2,000. So I did the math in my head real quick, and I go, okay, that's about $5,000. I go, yeah, that was the first deal that I did out of that initial listing. And I go, well, okay. And I got the contract and did an assignment and did everything else. So about a week goes by, I get another phone call. Okay. And it's about the same type of property, same price point, because that's what we market to, right? When you market to a list, that's usually what you get. A similar house in a similar neighborhood at a similar price point. And this lady was going, hey, I have a house I'm looking to sell. I went through a divorce. I don't want to live here anymore. I'm just going to move. She goes, I owe $22,000. She goes, I just want it out of my life. I just want it out of my life. I go, let me see what I can do. So being the narrow-minded thinker I was at the time, I call Lydia, who's my marketing person at the time, and I go, hey, I got a nicer house. It's probably a $50,000 house. I go, do you have somebody that would give me $25,000 down payment? Thinking that's all that somebody could have, because that's what they just gave me 2-3 weeks ago. And she goes, yes. And she looked at the house. So I got $25,000, knew I was going to give her $2,000, had a little bit of closing costs, made no cash on the deal, but I wrote a note for the difference, and it was like a $20,000 note, but I did it all wrong, man. I wrote it like 5% interest. I did, some crazy low term, but that was the very first creative deal. But that's not where the story really gets interesting, in my opinion. So I call Lydia up again, and I go, Lydia, you just sold 2 houses with no effort whatsoever, and you got $25,000 down. I didn't even have $25,000 I could be responsible at the time, right? And I just didn't. I go, how many buyers do you have? And we're sitting down at lunch, and she gets, I don't have a book here. She gets a spiral notebook out, and she starts going page after page after page after page after page, hundreds and hundreds of names with their name, their phone number, and how much cash they have. And there's numbers like $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, $100,000. And I go, wow, that's pretty eye-opening, because most people think, when they think about this kind of stuff, they put themselves in the position. Either when they go fix and flip a house, they always use their own opinion on what something should look like, not necessarily what the buyer needs, not what they want, right? A buyer doesn't need brand new appliances in the house. Okay? They want it, but they don't need it. They need a house to live in.
Yeah.
They don't need brand new carpeting. They don't need a fresh paint on the walls. They would like to have it, but guess what? They can do it themselves. So where I'm going with all this is that I said, what if I could give you what if I could provide nicer houses? Would you be able to get that kind of down payment? And she goes, yes. And so that's what we started doing, almost 1,000 transactions ago now, from the seller financing space, where we would buy the house, we would do some repairs, we'd sell it on seller financing, and back in the early day, we would sell the entire note, and that would be the model that we would do. So that's how I got started, and sort of got lucky a little bit. But I learned a long time ago, you can't put your own limit. You can't put your own beliefs in the model, because you'll really do yourself a disservice on what people really will buy and what they'll pay.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you overprice it, but people go, because a lot of times they might be a roofer, they might be a plumber, they might be a landscaper, they might be a general contractor. I mean, there's a lot of times these houses look better a year after I sold it to them than I did after I did all the full rehab. So,
wow, that says a lot.
That's how we do it. So now we give the buyers what they need, not necessarily what they want, because they can make it the way they want it to be. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Well, I tell you, Nick, since we've been on,
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. I don't know, jump in. Go ahead.
Yeah. Since we've been on, viewership's up. Everybody's trying to get into the Restream room. The room is full on that, so we want to make sure and let everybody know.
We're gonna start charging cover charge, Al. Let's start charging cover to get in here. It's before 9 o'clock. Most of the clubs don't charge you if you get in before 9.
Let's start charging. No, we want to make sure everybody's watching, and I'll just say, with the yellow thing keeps coming up, room is full. Check it out. If you tune in, or other people that are in the room trying to get in, go check it out. It's on Nick's Creative Financing. What's the group, Nick, exactly?
If you're in the private Facebook group, you can get into it, and we'll stream it live. So it's just facebook.com/groups/creative dealmaker. And if you're already in that group, we're streaming it live there too, and it's on the screen right there. If you're not, unfortunately, we won't be able to let you in tonight, because we have to vet you to get you into the group. But you can get in for the next time. Sorry about that.
There you go. Well, you know what? Now that it's shared, they'll be able to see it even later. But if you're watching out there, make sure you go there. And
let's bring that up real quick. So, I'll talk about the Bank Blueprint. So if anybody that wants more information on what we do, our Facebook groups, any of our ebooks and stuff that Eric and myself have done, if you go to bethebankblueprint.com, you can get all that information from there. You can get access to our Facebook channel, YouTube, all of our materials, download our deal or no deal analyzer, which helps you identify deal structuring and how to enter and exit out of deals as we go on. So hopefully that'll be there too. And then
we'll make sure we cover that for sure at the end. We'll make sure we plug everything in. We don't leave anything behind.
That's really the one thing they need more than anything is bethebankblueprint.com, because from there they'll get everything there is. The Creative Deal Maker, the Creative Deal Maker Academy, the cash flow deal machine, our videos, our content, everything. It's all easily accessible from just that one link. So
So you talked about it in the beginning, and it's something, I don't know if we even talked about it backstage, but as the entry point to even getting into creative deal structuring and to creative financing and seller terms, you were mentioning how the wholesale model is the great first step. And that's how a lot of investors start when they get into real estate, right? They start with the investing, and then they jump to different things. They learn the Nick Legamaro methods and how you can really do the seller term stuff, which that's crazy too. I've heard other people do deals where they'll pay, $7,000 down, and that's it. They got the title and everything like that. But talk to us about jumping in. So let's start from.
Let's talk about who this is really for. Okay,
Right.
Who is this for? Because what we are really a complementary solution to what people are already doing right now. Whether you're a wholesaler, a fix and flipper, a landlord, a lender, this is all a viable option to what you currently do. Let's talk about wholesalers, for example. Okay, wholesalers, by definition, it's a very transactional process, right? They go out and they negotiate with the seller, direct the seller. What do they ultimately try to do? They try to get the seller to say yes to their cash offer. That's their model. And if they get the seller to say yes, then they try to put an assignment fee on it and sell it to an investor for a profit. But what happens a lot of times, especially in a competitive landscape, what happens when the seller doesn't say yes? What is your plan B? Well, most wholesalers don't have a plan B, Al, right? Well, plan B, and the question they should be asking is, how do you give the seller what they're asking for, not necessarily the seller giving you what you asked them in cash for price. So that's where the creative deal structuring side comes in. So that's part of the creative deal maker, what we teach and what we do. That's one way to acquire, because contrary to popular belief, not all sellers want cash for a property. They just don't.
Right.
Some want cash flow, especially if you're dealing with the landlord. Okay, let's talk about landlords for a second. Landlords, their main objective, most of the time, they're landlords. Sometimes most of the time by choice, but sometimes, it's forced upon them, right? But the main reason why people are landlords is because it's cash flow. It's a way to generate cash flow. Well, as you said in the intro, we want to focus on being a Leinlord, not a landlord. Most people know what a landlord is. A landlord is somebody that owns the property, rents it out, gets cash flow, and they make a profit on it. And basically, the tenant pays down the mortgage. Well, we don't think like landlords. We think like banks. Okay, we want to act, think, and be a bank. And what I mean by that is, what do banks do? Okay, well, banks don't own anything. They control. All right. There's a reason why if you go downtown Dallas or Phoenix or Los Angeles or Atlanta and you look straight up, you see names of banks at the top of all those big buildings. Okay. So the banks have learned how to do something right. Whether you like banks or you dislike banks is not really the question or the point here. The point is that they make a lot of money by controlling real estate, not by owning. Okay. Because it's a powerful thing called amortization. And if anybody's not aware of what amortization is, they need to really become knowledgeable, because that is the secret sauce in all of this. Okay.
Well, what is amortization?
Like, so amortization is a way that you get paid. So it's all front loaded. Do you have a home? Do you ever had a home mortgage, Al?
No, not myself yet.
Not yet. Someday you will.
Not yet.
Yeah. A lot of people probably had. So let's say they have a bank loan from Bank of America, right? Okay. Who owns the house? You or the bank?
Well, it depends on the state, but
you always own it. But yeah, I shouldn't asked an attorney that question. That was a bad move on my part. The individual owns it, but the bank controls it because they have the lien on the property. The property is collateral, right? So when the roof leaks, or the toilet breaks, or the air conditioning goes out, the owner doesn't call the bank. The bank doesn't care. The bank just wants to get paid. As long as you pay the bank, there's no problems. When there is a problem, when you stop paying it, it becomes a problem. Then the banks are going to step in and say, you owe me money, and if you don't pay, I'm gonna take, put you in a default status, and we're going to figure out how to solve that problem then. Okay. Right. So that's what banks have learned a long time ago, that they can control. That's what we want to ultimately do. A lot of people don't even think they can be the bank. Okay, Al? And let's just talk about that for a second. So the seller financing market, the seller financing industry, when I say that, it's like, if you think about when most people have the mindset when they they have to go to the bank to get a bank loan, right? The bank's going to have to lend them money to buy whatever they want to buy. It's just not the case. There's a lot of individuals and and private companies that will lend on the property. In fact, the seller carry market in this past year was a $27 billion market.
Wow.
That's billion with a B. So that's
you tell me
all
about that.
this is all the mortgages that have been written for residential, land, commercial, whatever, that don't have the name Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America on as the lender. They're all individuals or small companies or, companies like what we do. Okay. That's a pretty substantial number. Would you not say? $27 billion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you can understand how to create the note, you can be part of it. So that's how big the seller financing market is. But let's talk a little bit about why it's so big. Okay. Why is it so big when most people don't even know it exists, right? So most people, like I said, most people don't even know they can be the bank. Then they don't know how to be the bank. Okay. We'll get into a little more detail on that. But why is the seller financing market so large? Why is it a $27 billion industry? Because I think it's important to know. Okay. Well, my opinion of it is two things. It's economics. I call it economics 101. Okay. I wasn't a great student. I did okay, but I did understand the concept of supply and demand. Okay. And so let's look at the basic economics in terms of seller financing. Well, depending on where you get your data from, okay, what your source is, somewhere between 60 and 70% of the population that would want to buy a house and get a bank loan cannot qualify traditionally with the bank. Okay? That's a pretty substantial number. Okay? No one ever hears that, do they? They just hear the rates were historically low for the last 5 years and now they're starting to go up. But that doesn't mean everybody can qualify. And now, as rates have gone up and go up and go up, banks are even tightening their lending standards even more. Okay, with nothing changing in the borrower file. Number two is that if you go do a search of properties available for sale in your market, and you can go to Realtor.com or Zillow, and you just say, "Hey, I'm going to search for all the properties that are for sale in Tampa, Florida." Okay. And you go look at Tampa, Florida, and you run it and it says there's 5,000 properties for sale. Okay. And then you go modify that search and you add in the terms or in the words that you're going to search with, seller financing, owner financing, something like that. The number goes down. It's less than 5% of all inventory available for sale is available with terms, seller financing. Okay. So if as much as 70% of the population needs seller financing and less than 5% of all the properties available are being sold with terms and seller financing, that's a pretty good situation to be in if you can provide the terms and you have the property. Would you agree?
Right. Yeah.
That
looks like an opportunity.
100%. And there's always buyers out there for properties because there's so many that need seller financing. It doesn't, and this is not going to change anytime soon. So as the market shifts away from being a seller market into a buyer market, then that's exactly that's a huge advantage for us because we're still buyers. We're still buyers of properties because we know there's sellers that need. We're still buyers of properties, but there's still buyers that need seller financing, and that's what we're ultimately able to do because we want to provide home ownership to hardworking families where the bank has basically told them no, and we're able to do that through structuring the deals the way that we do.
Yeah. So when you were talking about that, a couple things for the audience out there, because it with title and lending, it gets really interesting. The thing that Nick was talking about is different states have different rules about who has title and who actually just has a lien on the property. And it's called lien theory versus title theory states. So a lien theory state would be like Florida, right? So the bank has a lien only against the property. They don't have the title to the property like the person that would close, get title, and now they're on the deed. In certain states, it's the other way around. It's also where somebody just, the bank has the title to the property and it's not just a lien. So Nick's point is you got to really make sure that when you get into this, you get with the right professionals that understand this stuff. Of course, get with the right attorneys in those states because You don't just want to be getting into creative financing just to jump into it to find out you actually either don't have the control or ownership, and now it's all over the place because there's probably
that's a great point. So what we try to do, because this is not difficult what we do, but it's extremely complex. Okay, and when we work with people and we want to partner or do deals with them, there's really 4 things that they need to do. Okay, and they're going to be very, very similar to what they probably are doing already. First thing they have to do is they have to find the deal. Okay, I don't care what real estate angle you take. It all starts with finding a deal, right? It doesn't matter. You have to find the deal first. Then you need to be able to analyze the deal, make sure it's a deal that's worth buying, right? You have to fund the deal somehow, either with cash, private money, hard money, seller financing, sub 2, sub 3, whatever it is. You have to be able to fund it, okay? And then the last thing you have to do is you have to find the owner finance buyer. But think about it that's no different than a fix and flipper or a buy and hold investor or wholesaler. They're doing all of that stuff. There's just a different individual that they're targeting along the way. For example, if you're a buy and hold investor, when you get to that, you're looking for a tenant, right? Not looking for an owner. If you're a fix and flipper, you're looking for a retail buyer. If you're creating financing, you're looking for an owner finance buyer. So, and if you're a wholesaler, you're looking for an investor. That's it. So the model doesn't change. Now what happens is that when you get to that point and you get all 4 of those things, then what we highly recommend is then you let somebody that understands the process manage the rest of the transaction. Okay, that's the key to this whole model. This is how you get premium pricing on your notes. This is how you can stay in the notes, because what we teach is, and we'll go through an example here. We teach it so that we create 2 notes. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. So conceptually, you have to really understand the process. Let's just say, for argument's sake, the property is going to sell for $200,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we sell it for $200,000, and let's say we get 10% down. Okay, so we get $20,000 down. That leaves $180,000 that we need to provide financing for, because we sold it to a seller finance buyer. Okay, so but what the trick of this is how do we structure the $180,000 of notes? Okay, and what we learned, and it was a $6 million mistake that I'll explain here in a minute that I made, is that we created a first and a second note. And right now we're writing the first notes at a 75% or less of the LTV. The balance is the second and plus the down payment. So let's use a $200,000 example. We'll write a first lien at no more than $150,000. We'll write a second lien for $30,000, and the down payment is $150 plus 30 plus 20, $200,000. Follow me so far?
Yep.
So
keep going.
Then what we do, because we have a cost in this deal, right? Let's just say we borrowed hard money, okay? And we borrowed hard money, and I'm just going to make the math simple. We have a calculator for all this too, and it's part of the bank blueprint. You can get the calculator, and you can, in about 30 seconds, maneuver and manipulate numbers and levers and see what it does. Okay, so in this example, we'll take that first lien, and they'll sell the first lien, or we'll buy the first lien. A lot of stuff that we teach and we do is because we're note buyers. All this stuff is great, but I want to buy these notes. So I'll buy that note, okay, or somebody internally will buy that note that's got $150,000 face value. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, we buy it for 90 cents on the dollar, okay? I'm just using round numbers. It's easier calculation. So
yeah,
that'd be $135,000 is what the cash would be from the first note, okay? And we had $20,000 in cash from the down payment. So 135 and 20 is 155, okay? So let's just say, for argument's sake, that our cost basis was $150,000, okay? Well, now we have a net cash on that transaction of $5,000. Not a lot to get excited about, okay? But we've eliminated the cost basis. We have no more risk. We have no more liability because the note has been sold, right? But what are we left with? Well, we're left with a free and clear second lien at $30,000 that's amortized for 30 years.
Yeah.
That probably produces around a $250 a month cash flow. Okay, think about that for a second. Do you have any rental properties out?
No, not yet.
Okay, not yet? No, you should. Well, we'll talk later.
See?
I don't want you making
How I
bad
answer
decisions.
that?
No, I always say this. It just depends. You got to decide what's best for you, right? Some people love rental properties. I do not, because I don't like people that much. I'll be quite honest with you. I like you, but I don't like dealing with people. I like dealing with numbers. I like dealing with cash, because guess what? When the cash flow hits my account, I'm not dealing with tenants and toilets and property management and deferred maintenance and liability and insurance. I don't deal with any of that stuff. All I do is collect my check. In this example, a $30,000 second lien. But here's the catch on this: it's amortized, okay? And let's just say that let's say it's a 10% mortgage. And I don't have my financial calculator here, so I'm just giving illustration here, okay?
Yeah.
A $30,000 note on a 30-year term at about 10% is probably $250 to $260 a month cash flow. Okay, I don't owe anything on it because that's my profit on the deal. Okay, 10 years from now. So let's just say I get $250 a month for 10 years. That's 120 payments. Okay, what's that going to be? 25 plus another. I can't do the math in my head. $30,000. Let's call it 30. I think it's close to that. But the unpaid balance is still owed to me because it's amortization. When it started at $30,000 today, it's still like $27,000. So I get another lump sum payout at some point in the future. So what we want to do is compare it to being a landlord. So if you were fortunate enough to have an asset that could produce net cash flow $250 a month, that'd be pretty good. But it's gonna be an expensive asset. Chances are, if you borrow from the bank, you had to probably put some amount of money down. You're just a lot of moving parts on it. I don't have any moving parts on it. That's how we structure, and that's how we basically do it. And I built a huge business on this. Matter of fact, my original business, which I built with my original partner, his name is John Montero. Anybody that's in multifamily may come across him because he teaches multifamily now. And we created this business, and this model that we created, we ended up selling to a 100-year-old federally chartered bank. Okay, so the bank could not do what we did, but they can buy it. So the back end process and everything that we do, remember I said you only have to do 4 things, right? Find a property, analyze the deal, fund it, sell it to an owner finance buyer. From there, submit it and get out of the way and let the experts do it. Let the attorneys do what they need to do. Let the underwriters do what they need to do. The servicers do what they do. The title company, the doc prep, the attorneys that do all the notes. Let them do what they do. Do not try. I would say highly recommend against not doing it yourself. And here's the reason why, Al. That $27 billion a year of mortgage notes that are created, probably 97% of them are poorly written. They don't follow best business practices. They don't write it like a Bank of America or Chase or a Wells Fargo does. Why is that? It's because they don't know. They're not built the same way. So we have built it so you can actually act like a bank and write notes like a bank. You get premium pricing on it when you want to exit out of it, or if you want to stay in it, you have a high quality, desirable asset. Because the people that want to buy those kind of notes are going to be like family offices, hedge funds, financial institutions. They don't want something that doesn't perform. They don't want a headache. They just want to get paid a nice return based on the money they invest. That's why this model is so valuable and such a great thing, because the majority of the people don't write quality notes. And we know this for a fact because the national average if you sell a note to anybody is about 82 to 84% of the value of the note. So let's just say, for sake of argument, that the note is worth $100,000, okay? And it's written at the correct interest rate. You might get $82,000 to $84,000 for that $100,000 note today. Well, why is it not 100? Well, there's things like time value of money, right? There's risk. Did you underwrite the borrower correctly? Did you get the proper amount of down payment?
Right.
Are you servicing the note? Are you escrowing taxes and insurance? All right. Is the property? Did you sell the property for more than it's worth? Where the hell is the property located? Right. All those factors. All those are factors that impact somebody's ability or desire to purchase a note. But all things consistent. The difference between what we create and through the process we use and what most people do is about an 8% value add. Okay. So for example, if you're, that $100,000 note that you might sell for 82, 84, you're going to probably get 90 to 92 for it if you just stack the file correctly. You cross all the T's, you dot all the I's, you put all the right information in the files, and you do it the right way. And I can't emphasize this enough. People think that they know what they're doing. They don't. And it's not a knock on them. It's just they don't know how to act, think, and be a bank. Here's why I know this. Because when I was selling my company, I went through basically an 11-month, examination, for lack of a better word, of ripping open everything that we did and why we did it and how we did it. And we came out and we were and a lot of the files that we did in those days, they were written every good, if not better, than Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, because the same auditors that audited our files are the same auditors that do their files. Same thing, it's just got a different name on it on the loan. So we're able to pass that on to people that really truly want to get in the note creating or note buying. So there's a lot of people that might be listening to this that are note buyers. Okay, well, if 97% of the notes that are written or not written are inferior, think of it like this, Al. Think of it like I'm in Texas and I like using my Ford F-150. Okay, a lot of Ford F-150s driving around Texas. I got two identical 2015 white Ford F-150 pickup trucks. They both got 50,000 miles on it. They're both white with tan interior. Okay, but the difference is one has brand new tires on it, has impeccable maintenance records. There's not a scratch or dent on the exterior. The interior's in pristine condition, and it looks like it just rolled off the showroom. The other one has been beat to shit. Okay, the windshield's cracked. There's no record. The tires are bald. There's a scratch and a dent on every panel of the vehicle. The interior's has been ripped up. Which one of those two vehicles is worth more money?
Yeah, I don't want the one that's ripped up or anything.
No, it's not. Well, and even if you did, because you were a mechanic, and said, "Oh, I can fix it and get a better deal," that's beside the point. The point is, you want to deal with the known quantity. Note buyers want to deal with the known quantity. They'll pay a premium for that. And ultimately, that's what you want to have too, because remember, we're creating a first and a second note here. Some people might want to hold both of those notes they create. But if they sell the first and stay in the second lien position, that note's still for 30 years. Wouldn't you want to know if your profit and your money that you're going to get paid on that second note, wouldn't you want to know that you did a really good job of underwriting that buyer?
Yeah.
I surely would.
Yeah.
It's going to give me the ability to do it. It's worth more money if I ever need to do something else in the future. So that's basically, why we structure it and why we do it that way. So,
Nick, what's really interesting, and we're going to definitely get to the comment section. A couple questions came in too. What's really interesting is you're talking about the leverage of the creation of the note and the ability to correctly draft it in a way that positions you to be more valuable. So if you're on the side of buying the note, you are almost in a position to say, well, I'm not going to buy it for that much because I know that there could be a lot of issues with it. But if you're on the other end selling the note, you basically have that leverage to say, we're not 97% of the people that are out there that have these kind of notes. No, the way we did it is different, and here's why. And we're not coming off our price point. So there's like different strategies, I'm sure, when it comes to that. But one thing that, and while you were on that role, Reginald Russell, he said, "Do you create notes?" And that got me thinking, like, what are some things that go into that? Do you create notes? What are those
And
provisions?
that's exactly what that is. We create a first and a second note, and we sell the first and keep the second. That's it. When I talked about that $6 million mistake that I made, okay, I didn't lose $6 million, okay? It was a $6 million mistake, and the mistake was I've been creating notes. I've created over 1,000 notes. I've taught endless number of people how to create notes as well. But the key to creating the note is by creating a first and a second, because it gives you options and flexibility, okay? And it gives you the ability, because when you sell that note at a discount, you never get it back. It's gone forever. So when we're able to create a first and sell it for enough to cover debt and stay in the deal, that's what we did. So when my partner and I did it initially, we didn't do that. It was a 100% transactional model. So we instead of, it's a big number, and it's really hard to say to verbalize it versus showing it visually. But think of it like this: we're going to get maximum if we were to write. Let's go back to the example where I wrote a $150,000 first and a $30,000 second, $180,000 against a $200,000 property. That is a 90% loan to value. It's also pretty close to 90% investment to value, which is what a note buyer is looking at. They're looking at what their yield is going to be, and they're looking at what their investment to value is. Well, why is this important? Well, the higher the investment to value is, the more risk. Because if your cost basis on a note that you buy, say 180, and the property's worth 200, and the borrower goes into a default situation, you have a lot less margin to work with to protect your initial investment, right? Whereas when I write a $150,000 note and I sell it, and now the note holder has $150,000 or $140,000 investment, but it's still securitized by the same $200,000 property in the first lien position, which is a safer investment.
Yeah, second one.
The second one. But guess what I can do? I can sell it at a premium or buy it at a premium because I know it's a more secure investment. That's how this all works. Because at the end of the day, you have to shift. If I was to write that $180,000 note, I might get in an open market 80, let's call it 85%. Okay. I think that's a little aggressive, but for sake of argument, let's do it. So if I take 85% of 180, let me do this in the calculator real quick. 180 times 153. Okay. So it's $153,000 is all that I'm getting for that total note. Okay. So if my cost basis was 150, I made 3,000 on the note sale plus my down payment of cash, whatever that was, 20,000 less expensive. I'm out of the deal completely. Okay. I got it all out. So in this situation, I made 20. Let's just say that's the net on it. So 20 plus 3, $23,000 completely out of the deal, right? Now let's go back to the original example where I wrote $150,000 first and I kept the 30,000. I sell the 150 for 135, okay? And I get the 20 down. So I made $5,000, okay? $5,000 instead of $23,000, but I got a $30,000 second lien that I didn't get on the other deal because I sold it. I sold the whole thing. Well, if you look at amortization, the face value on a 30,000 is not really 30,000. It could be 3x of that number over time. That $30,000 note could be worth as much as $90,000 or even $100,000. Zero cost basis, cash flow. So how long would it take you if you're making $250 a month to get the difference of $18,000 back? Well, let's just do the math on it real quick. 18,000 divided by, let's call it 250, 72 months. That's 6 years. So in 6 years, if you can wait, you'll be at $23,000. You follow where I'm going with this?
Oh yeah.
But I wrote the note for 30 years. So that means I got another minus 360. I got 288 payments that are still due to me at the cash flow that I get on the back end that I wouldn't have never have gotten if I didn't keep the second note. That's the value of this model. That's why you don't want to sell any more than you absolutely have to. That's what I did wrong on the first 500 notes that I did. I did exactly that. I didn't take advantage of selling less of the note and then doing other things creative. And all the notes that we wrote, I came up, it was about $5.8 million, okay, of lost opportunity. I didn't lose that much money. I lost it in the discount. You follow me? And so that discount cost me the opportunity to hold about $5.8 million. And maybe it only would have taken me 72 months to get to that point and get all the back in. And we know it's worth 3X. You know, $6 million is really close to almost $18 million in opportunity to do it. It's power of amortization is something extremely valuable. When you write notes, don't write just first. Don't write first, because you know what? You can still hold first and the second note, even if you want to hold them both for yourself. So a lot of easier to show in a thing. And if you go into if you put it up in there, if you go to creativedealmaker.com/video, we walk through in detail an example of a deal from acquisition to disposition, and it's pretty educational on how we structure and why we structure the way we do.
Yeah, no, this is super valuable. I mean, great examples, actually, really kind of getting into the basic numbers too. And I love the shirt too. I don't know if I realized it was
I might
the plus sign.
I might bring you.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, even if you have a mug, we'll get it on the shelf. Have you got any mugs made? You and Eric making things?
We don't do mugs, but I'll get you one and put it on the shelf. CreativeDealmaker.com. So we have a digital product, okay? And the digital product is a do-it-yourself product, but it goes through the stuff in great length and details on exactly how we do it, why we do it. Look, what we do is not for everybody, okay? I'm going to tell you that right. We're just sharing our own personal experiences on why we did it and why we do it now. And it's that simple. So it's really, really good information. If you're thinking about, we work with a lot of landlords, for example, and they're just tired, man. They're tired. I just saw an article that that I had no idea this. I'm not in the landlord space, but the amount of people that are tenants that have not paid, that are scheduled for eviction, is incredible. I was shocked. But here's what happens. When they no longer become a tenant and you're a landlord, and now you have the asset, or you got a decision to make, or there's a decision you should look at. Decision one, do you go find another tenant? Or two, do you turn around and sell or finance that house and create a note on it and get the cash flow from the creating of the note instead of having to deal with the tenants? Huge opportunity. Anybody that's a landlord really, really should consider it, because the amortization is a lot of times when we look at houses to buy, landlords, I just had this conversation. I'm looking at a $14 million portfolio, and the landlords, man, I'm going to get hammered on the taxes. And I go, well, why do you think that? Well, because my cost basis is like zero, because we kept trading up to buy properties. I go, well, what if you sold it on an installment sale? Then what's your taxable event? What if you sold it to me on a 100-year term and you gave me a balloon payment in 100 years? What's the taxable event then? I was making it, a crazy example. He goes, well, I wouldn't have one. I go, you're absolutely right. You wouldn't have one for 100 years. What's the value in 100 years on what you did? Not the tax, but if you can get cash flow as a landlord, okay, then you only are paying it on the percentage or the dollar amount that you bring in. So landlords, a great opportunity. Same with wholesalers. We talk about wholesalers. Anybody that's not negotiating terms with sellers, because guess what you can do is you're a wholesaler. You can still treat it as a transactional model. Just go negotiate terms instead of cash. You can sell the terms, deals just the same. Go negotiate, payments. I just bought one from a wholesaler, and they negotiated terms directly with the seller, and I'm paying the seller a payment. Okay, yeah. And I'm fine with that. Seller's fine, because here's what people, and especially wholesalers, don't understand. Not contrary to popular belief, not all people want cash for a transaction on a sale. I'm telling you, it's just not the case. So if you can give them what they want in the form of the price, a lot of times they'll give you what you want back in the form of terms. That's all that we're doing. So go negotiate terms deals. If you don't understand how to negotiate terms deals, there's tons of people that can show you how to negotiate on terms. It's a lot of the people that we know. There's great people that are out there that will teach you how to negotiate on terms deals, right?
Yeah,
a lot of friends of ours. And guess what? You can utilize all those strategies. They all work, and then turn it into the exit with this creating the note instead of maybe holding it. Make the decision, run the model, see what works best for you.
Yeah, love it, Nick. Again, so much information and a wealth of knowledge when it comes to creative structuring and really getting in the nitty gritty when it comes to here's why it works, here's a really good example, and also even getting into some of the strategies of the installment stuff. I mean, there's people that are just jumping in the game that would be all over the place, and that's why it helps to get with somebody like Nick Legamaro that can really get into it. And one thing I'll say, the comments, I mean, we didn't even get to some of the people. And Coach Gio, I hope you're watching. Gio, if you're still watching, drop a comment in there, drop a fire, drop a bomb, whatever you want to put in there. Love that you're watching. Kevin Hawthorne, good evening from Lakeland, Florida. Awesome, Kevin, you're there. But my guy, Joe Rowick, the Rowick is watching the show tonight. He said, this guy is awesome, a wealth of knowledge. He said, Nick, how many cups of coffee did you have before this?
Funny fact, I don't drink coffee. I've never had coffee in my entire life. I don't need coffee, man.
I love it.
I grew up in Arizona, and I grew up in Arizona, and I never could figure out why anybody would want to drink anything that was hot living in Arizona. It made no sense to me. How anybody can drink it, don't drink it. But what I was going to say, though, on this is that, guys, if you want to understand this more, and it's something that you want to add to your tool belt, right? And this, because look, every deal is different, right? Not all deals are made for creative financing. Just like all deals aren't fix and flips, and not all properties are good for buying a home, right? You got to know what your options are. But if you go to that bethebankblueprint.com and you sign up, then get into the private Facebook group, okay? Get into the private Facebook group, Creative Deal. You can go on Facebook group, it's Creative Deal Maker, okay? Or facebook.com/groups/Creative Deal Maker, and join in on our groups. We do, Eric Sage, my partner, and myself, we do live calls almost every week, called Office Hours Live, and we do exactly this, but we do it more in a more visual format with the modeling and looking stuff up, and and things like that. So cool tip. Give a couple other things away. Plus, you'll get all the other stuff that we have in there, our ebooks, modeling, and stuff like I talked about earlier. But here's a cool tip, man. I want people to make note of this, okay? Because it doesn't matter where you are, but what we look at on the note side is that I want to know value, right? Not only the value of the property itself, but where it sits and resides geographically in any specific market. So one of the things that I like to use is it's called ZHVI. So it stands for Zillow Home Value Index. So if you go on Google and you search ZHVI and then the zip code, it will give you the median home price for that specific zip code. Okay. So I like to see that because I want to know where my property is relative to that geographical area. For example, if the median home price is $250 and my property is $300,000, well, then I'm on the wrong side of the curve from a desirability standpoint. Doesn't mean it's not worth it. Doesn't mean we won't sell it, but I would rather be at 200 on a 250 median home price than 300, right? Because that's just my personal opinion. Doesn't mean the house is not worth more, but just from my experience, we know that when you're on the left side of that curve, the ability to sell things quicker and be more profitable on it is just far, far greater. So just a little tip, ZHVI, zip code, and see what it is. The other thing it shows you, and it'll be interesting to track it, it also shows the rolling 12-month value index of price increases, right? Mm-hmm. So the last 12 months, it might say it's up 15%. You know, and it might go down, and it'll keep adjusting. So anyway, what else you got?
Well, no, Nick, one thing that I was thinking about when I saw Joe post the comment is Joe gets into a lot of wholesaling And you never know what the market presents, where all of a sudden hedge funds stop buying. Maybe buyers are a little cautious.
You already stopped buying.
Well, but just saying in general, like you get into a position where you're wholesaling and that's all you're focused on, and you're like, well, wait a second, what is my next strategy?
Yeah.
Something I wrote down in the beginning was, what if you're in that position? Like, how do you know a deal that you can pivot away from the wholesaling aspect of it and shift to on seller terms or creative financing? Or is it not really made for every deal? How do you analyze that deal from the beginning to say this is an opportunity, or is every deal like that?
Well, it depends, right? Just like I said, it just really depends. But I will tell you this, is that you can sell a property on terms just as easy, if not easier, than if you negotiate with cash. And you can pay more money. I can pay somebody, here's a perfect example. Typical wholesalers, let's just say 3 months ago, their maximum allowable offer, let's just say they were at 82%. Okay? It doesn't matter if they were higher or lower. And now that same wholesaler is probably negotiating maybe at 70, 75%. In a month from now, they're going to be at 68%. In 3 months from now, they're going to be even lower than that. And here's what's going to happen. Forbearance just ended in March. Okay, 8 million properties were in forbearance. Okay, forbearance was basically a way that the banks allowed borrowers basically not to make payments. Okay, they said you don't have to make the payment. COVID hit. A lot of people went to forbearance. Okay, well, forbearance is now over. Okay, so they may not have to make up the back payments right now, but they still have to make payments. Okay, not everybody's going to come out of forbearance and be able to make payments. Okay, there's going to be a huge flooding of properties that hit the market where sellers are going to have to sell. Not because they want to, because they have to. Because a lot of times they have equity tied up in these properties, and the only way they can get that equity out is to sell. They can't borrow against it because they don't have the right employment anymore. They can't do loan mod because the same reasons, and that's basically what happens. So we have the ability to come in and help negotiate deals with sellers to help creatively structure them so that we can go and help them out of a situation and hopefully help a buyer in to owning a property where the banks have told them no.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a different industry when it comes to not just buying and selling and wholesaling, but really getting creative with the numbers and how you structure it with lending or notes, and really getting into that. It's a whole world that I think a lot of people. I thought I saw somebody recently. They were mind blown that they were able to do a deal on terms versus buy it outright, and it actually worked out way better for them when they did terms instead of a full close.
You just don't know, right? And look, the guy I'm negotiating with right now for this $14 million portfolio, he goes, well, I'm trying to think how exactly he said it. I go, would you be interested in seller financing to me? I asked him how much debt he had on it. He goes, I owe about $2 million. And so he has about 10 million, 12 million free. So I go, well, if I gave you the $2 million to pay off your debt, would you be willing to carry seller financing for me as the buyer for the things? And he goes, yeah, I guess so. But this is exactly how he said it. Yeah, I guess I would consider that, but I'll have to charge you 5%. And I'm going, I already know I go, really? Somebody is knowledgeable and experienced that's built a whole business on building multi-million-dollar portfolios thinks that he's getting a good deal at 5%. Well, let me tell you something. I'm not selling it on terms at 5%. I'm turning around and selling it at 10%. So just do the simple math on that. If I have a portfolio that I'm buying at $10 million and I'm paying 5% on it, and I'm selling it at $10 million or $12 million or whatever it is, but getting 10%, and I'm arbitraging that, because what happens, you have two amortization schedules, okay? This is where amortization comes in. So they both start at the same number, but the 5% pays down much faster than the 10%. Go look it up. 10 years from now, I'll have the equity position on that will be phenomenal. I will crush them by doing it, and we'll turn all those rental properties into seller finance properties is what we'll end up doing if we end up structuring the deal, and I can get him to carry the whole amount. So that's it. But that happens all the time. People think they're smarter than they know, because what they do is they go, well, the bank's charging 4%. If it's good enough for the bank, I'm going to charge 4% too. Well, you don't have to. There's a demand. It gets back to economics. There's a demand. There's a demand. The charge. The biggest mistake I see most investors make when they write mortgage notes, they write the interest rate way too low.
What do you think the number should be? Like especially with the Fed raising the rates like again and again by different bases.
So by rule, according to Dodd-Frank, as a small cap lender or individual, whatever you want to use, we can write a mortgage. Now there might be usury laws in certain states and blah 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 blah. Okay, but according to Dodd-Frank, we can write it at APR plus 6.5 points. And the APR is the average prime offer rate. Think of it like LIBOR, right? Or some government index that sets and comes out weekly. The underwriter will handle all this at 6.5%. I don't know what it is today, but I'm going to guess it's probably at close to 5. Okay, so that means I could literally write a conforming qualified mortgage at 11.5%. I'm not doing it 11.5% right now. We're doing it 9 3/4 and 9.95, but that number could change. It could go to 10.5. It might go to 11. But at the end of the day, buyers will still pay it because it's the trade-off that they can own versus rent. That's it. Because guess what? If you're thinking about it from a home buyer's perspective, what's the interest rate on rent, Al? If you rent, what is the interest rate on rent? Well, there technically is an interest rate, but if you were paying a rate, you can't calculate it. It's infinite because you don't get any value back for the rent that you pay. You pay $1,000 a month for rent, you don't get a $10 rebate back. You don't get anything back. It's gone forever. So when you pay 10% on an interest rate on a mortgage, you do get value back because the value comes in the back. Well, number one, you get to deduct the interest expense. That's a value. You get to deduct property taxes on your taxes. That's number two. And then you also you eventually own that property. Regardless of what it costs you, if you rent for 50 years, you have nothing at the end of 50 years, right? If you buy and pay 10% and you pay it for 30 years, you have something at the end of 30 years of value. That's the fundamental difference. That's why we don't really worry about what interest rates are. We don't gouge. We're not predatory lenders, but there's a reason why we charge what we charge.
Right.
That's what we're allowed to. Plus, we have risk, right? If you want a cheap mortgage, then go down to Bank of America and get you 3%. It's okay. I don't care what you do, but don't ask me to be Bank of America because that's not what we are.
Yeah, there's a way to do it the right way with the rates
100%.
and like structuring, and then there's crazy ways, right? So,
and you write really bad notes. They don't underwrite the buyer. They don't vet the buyer. They don't service it. All that stuff is really, really, really important to do it for obvious reasons. We wouldn't even look at notes to buy unless we know the history of the underwriting. And right now, to be quite honest with you, we very rarely buy notes that somebody else created. Just it's not worth the energy and effort to go vet all the documentation that's required to make them work.
Yeah,
so,
it's got to work the way you want it to work, and so
yes.
that's that. Yeah, you've been in it so long, you already know. We had a great question in the Restream chat, and I don't know, Mike. However, we can put this on there, just a copy paste. It's Eric Howell, the house guy. He says, do you typically write the second note 30% or less, or can you write it for more and still make it desirable to note buyer? I'm structuring Morby methods and learning how to plan for my exit.
Yeah. So we know Pace really well, Eric and myself.
Pace.
Pace is a great guy. You know him as well.
Yeah, Pace.
We do all of the stuff we do is technically a wrap. Okay, might only be for a couple weeks, but it's a wrap mortgage. So we want to be able to exit out of this as cleanly as possible. The short answer is, because the government just started to allow traditional mortgage to be written at 40 years. Okay, and I really had to think about it. I go, wow, that is a long time. I mean, the difference between a 30-year and a 40-year mortgage is a very small dollar amount, but it adds another X to the calculation. So a $100,000 note on a 30-year term, you're paying about $300,000. A $100,000 note on a 40-year term, you're paying about $400,000. So as the bank, it's actually a really good. It's actually better, right? When you're making more money. But I think it puts the borrower in a sort of a bad position, because it's going to take him forever to get that to an equity position where he's not upside down potentially on the property. And we don't want to put borrowers in a position to fail. We want to put them in a position to succeed and have home ownership. So, and here's the other reason why I don't really go 40-year. At least, and I may change my opinion on this. But when you look at it, is that when you underwrite the buyer, okay, and you put them through underwriting, if they don't pass or qualify on a 30-year term and they pass and qualify on a 40-year, that difference, if they're that tight already, they're probably not the right buyer for you anyway. If they got to go to 40 years to make it work, that's just. It's a personal opinion. The short answer on the note side, I don't know that it will actually affect the value, because most people don't stay in notes in properties for 30 or 40 years. It's about a 10-year. So we're looking in banking on a payout in probably 10 years anyway. So 40-year, the underwriting of the buyer, the quality of the asset, the stacking of the file, all that stuff, way more important than if it's a 30 or 40-year mortgage.
Interesting. Great. Hey, great answer right there. And Nick, I can't remember who was telling me about this by name, but I remember them saying, don't be surprised when we start seeing now 40-year mortgages, not just 30-year, but 40-year. So like, as you were explaining it, like there's going to be a difference there. And just for any viewer that's maybe just jumping into real estate or intermediate or somewhere in there, what would be that difference again between a 30-year and a 40-year mortgage?
Well, it depends on how big the note is, right? But the payment is very minimal relative to what the ultimate cost of it is. Probably on a $200,000 note or a house, you're probably looking at maybe $40 a month in payment. But the additional principal and the additional interest that you pay over that time is significant. You have to run an amortization table to get the exact number, but it's going to be substantial. I think you're really doing a disservice to the borrower by writing that longer term. You're not doing them any favors, that's for sure. Now, if the difference is getting them in the house versus not, well, that's a subjective opinion on if that's what they're really wanting to do and if you're willing to do it. I think there's other ways to solve that problem. Maybe get a co-borrower involved. Maybe they got to pay off a little more debt or something like that. We want to put the borrowers in a position to be successful borrowers.
Right.
Because remember, we're staying in the deal and we're holding the notes.
Right.
So we want them to pay on time every month, because that's where our money comes from. That's where our cash flow comes from.
Yeah, great. Love it. And then Julia, we won't forget you, because I don't know why the Restream chat does what it does. But Julia wanted to know, how do you vet a buyer?
Great question. I don't. It's not my job. That's the job of the RMLO, okay? The Residential Mortgage Loan Originator. Okay, they act on behalf of the lender, just like if you go to the bank and you fill out an application, then somebody reviews that application and determines the, answers the question. So Dodd-Frank spells all this stuff out. Okay, what's interesting about Dodd-Frank and what we have in our favor that banks do not is that our number one criteria is that we have to show and prove that the borrower has the financial capacity to make that payment. Okay, that's it. We don't, credit score is just something we can consider. The DTI, or debt to income ratio, something we have to consider. Where banks have a hard line in the sand on that stuff, right? The DTI has to be, I think they just raised it to 45%, right? 45% of there again, I don't even get into all the specifics on that because that's not what we do. That's what the underwriter does on our behalf. That's what you should have. That's why the transaction coordinator is such an important part of this process, because they manage all that. Okay, you get the report, you can see it all when it comes back. But at the end of the day, I don't get in the weeds on servicing. I know how it all works, but I don't need. That's what they get paid to do. I know what should be written in a promissory note, but the attorneys write the notes and the deeds of trust and all the warranty deeds, everything that goes along with that. That's what they get paid to do. So, that's it. So I would say don't worry about so much the back end. You shouldn't be doing it yourself anyway. You want to consult a professional that can help you do it. Because I will tell you this, from my experience of looking at notes and buying notes, if you try to do this yourself on the transaction management side, it'll cost you twice as much doing it yourself because of the amount of time it takes you to do it. If you do it wrong, it'll probably cost you 5 times because of the discount that you have to take for not structuring it properly and underwriting the file correctly.
Yeah.
It's not worth the trade-off. It's just not.
Yeah. Great question, Julia. Anybody out there that's watching, that's thinking through even getting into doing terms or getting into creative financing, definitely ask your question. We're live with Nick. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity.
Look at him. Ask me questions.
Look at him. He's ready sitting there. Yeah, he's got the calculator out. He's ready to maybe press. You need to get a T-shirt. You need to get the T-shirt with the calculators on the T-shirt. That'd be cool. Well, no. But imagine it lit up.
I actually type it in and you can see it.
Like Eric's like, hold on a second, Nick, come over here, and just start typing it in. That'd be cool.
Let me punch this in.
Nick, something I was thinking about before I wrote this down. You mentioned it briefly. Lending standards have changed, and how the banks have been tightening their lending standards. One, what are they doing now that's a little bit tighter than before? And 2, does that also put you now in a position to does that help you with terms, or does that now put your radar on and go, well, if the banks are doing it, do we now need to change a little bit of our position?
So I don't know what's changed in the last 3 months, but let me give you an example of what happened when COVID first hit. Okay, when COVID first hit in March of 2020, if there was 100 people that had already been pre-approved for a mortgage and were waiting to close, okay, they'd already gone through the underwriting process and everything was verified and validated, okay, and you look at that and you looked at that same borrower file, those same 100 applicants in August of that same year, only about 65 to 70% would now qualify. Okay. But nothing changed in the borrower's file. Their job didn't change. Their credit score didn't change. Their DTI didn't change. Their cash reserves didn't change. Nothing changed on the buyer side. What changed was the bank's position on risk and what they didn't deem as, how they perceive the risk. That's how much it changed. It's a very subjective thing. I don't know what they do and what they don't do on how they approve and what they don't approve. So, but I do know it changed, and that's where the the vulnerability that you have is being able to go buy. Okay. For us, doesn't really have any impact because our buyers in general, they weren't going to be able to go down to the Bank of America and get a loan anyway. For example, I am not a traditional buyer. I cannot go down to the bank and get a bank loan. Okay. It's not that I'm not a good borrower. It's because I own multiple companies. I get paid in distributions. They deem me as a higher risk. What, right, wrong, or different? I don't know. I could have 10 times the amount of money in the form of cash in the bank, and they still wouldn't qualify me for a mortgage. That's just how banks are, right? So our buyers were never really traditional buyers to begin with. We do with a lot of international buyers, and where they don't have social security numbers, they have what's called an ITIN or an individual tax ID number, right? So they have the right to work in the United States. They have the right. They pay taxes in the United States, but they can't go down and get a bank loan from the bank because that's the way our screwed up system is. And it's probably not going to change anytime soon because banks don't need to lend to everybody. They're going to lend to the select few, and unfortunately, that really prevents people that really truly want to be home buyers from becoming a home buyer. And that's what we love to be able to do. We love to be able to provide hardworking families the ability to have home ownership if they choose to.
Right.
We don't say no like the banks say no. We do say no on occasion. You can't be a deadbeat borrower. That's not going to work. But if you can show that you have the ability to do what we need you to do, then there's a really good chance we'll get you approved and you'll be a home buyer.
Yeah. And that's what I think you talked to me about at family was the fact that that's the benefits of working with somebody like you versus a bank, right? Which is you're there to help the situation. You're analyzing it just like they would, but you're thinking through it on a different level that's not institutional.
The main difference between what a bank does and what we do, banks, I think they weight the risk, they weight it on the individual higher than on the asset. Okay. So when I say weighted, I mean the weighted average, right? They might give the borrower 90% of the weight and the property 10%. Whereas we're on the other side. We're using the asset as one of the more important parts of the transaction. That's not necessarily the buyer. Okay. We want the asset to be worth $200 because we're going to get the down payment and so on. The borrower, that's why you can go get a 95% FHA loan, right? And put very little bit of money down because they're really underwriting the buyer and they're not looking at the risk from an asset perspective because it's all insured anyway. It's just how they evaluate the deal. Don't think it's that important. We like to look at the asset. We're able to write plenty of borrowers the notes that they need to have home ownership.
Yeah, awesome. And we had a great question. We can't see who it is, so if you want to drop your name in there, whenever we go live, it depends on where it's channeled or paired. It may be from the Facebook group, Nick. But they said if we buy a house with hard money, you can show us how to pay that off and do a second to get monthly income. For example, we buy $65,000 and value is $130,000 and sell with seller financing.
That's our bread and butter model, actually. So if you go to creativedealmaker.com/video and you watch that video, that's exactly the model that we did and we used to do. Now, we still do that model, but I will tell you this, with the changes in the environment, I don't need to go buy it with hard money like I used to be able to. I'll get the seller to carry and I'll bypass the hard money lender. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you acquire. It's all about the exit. It's all about the note creation. It's about staying in the deal. It's about the cash now, the cash flow, and the cash later. That's my opinion, and that's why we do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, Nick's a great example. I mean, if you want to get into something like this or you are interested in it, we'll make sure we plug it in again at the end of how to look into it and get into it, and definitely join the Facebook group. I know when Nick added me or wanted me to be a part of that group, I got in and I looked at what was going on, and him and Eric having the lives. I mean, that's huge. People asking questions, people posting scenarios, that kind of stuff matters all day. It comes down to examples, right, Nick? It comes down to people actually getting into it and doing it. And again, I'll point out that what was interesting on the call that you and I had was it's so different to own property versus control the asset. Control it, not from an ownership standpoint. And people, have to see that there's a different side to not just owning property, but being the bank. And that's what Nick's been really stressing about on how to do it and why it can be successful.
I'm surprised it didn't come up in the chat at all. Always get thrown you don't get depreciation. I always get that question, as I always sort of chuckle.
Well, what happens?
I go, well, I don't get depreciation, but you don't get amortization. And I'll take amortization over depreciation any day. First of all, depreciation is great if you have enough to depreciate, number one. Number two, depreciation will run out. You don't get depreciation forever, okay? So those are the two main things. The way since we're talking about single-family residences here, houses, I'd much rather be a bank with single-family. Now, if I want to get depreciation or I want something else, I'm going to do, I'll do a different strategy, but I won't do it in single family. I'll do it in a multifamily. I'll do it in a storage unit, on commercial property, or something like that. So I just don't like dealing with the asset in a single family area. That's just me personally.
Yeah. Well, no, you've seen it for, how many years?
So, hey, I always say, look, if it's good enough for the banks, it's probably good enough for most. And the last time I checked, banks control, they don't own. They get amortization, they don't get depreciation. So if it's good enough for them, it's definitely good enough for me. And I'm okay with that. Hey, you can't have everything, man. You just got to pick out what you think is more important and valuable to you. Yeah. I'd rather have control. That's
me. Yeah, like you said, you'd rather have the control. So that's definitely a different perspective than a lot of other people that have been on the show talking about buying assets or keeping it, or maybe being on the management side, which is totally different.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I just want to make sure, Nick, let's make sure we plug everything that's out there where people can really take advantage of. The viewership's been strong. It's amazing. Everybody's out there loving this. I know they're watching it. They want to learn. The restream chat room's full. We haven't seen the thing go yellow yet in a while, but we know that everybody's still tuned in watching. So, Nick, this is the perfect time to make sure everybody knows, because like you were saying, Nick, this can get complicated, right? And I love that you are the type that can make a complicated subject a simple subject and matter. And you can explain it in a way that, look, this is the opportunity and the benefit. But we want to also make sure that if you get interested in this kind of stuff, you can get in touch with Nick and work with Eric and Nick and get into their team. So go for it. We'll make sure we put it up there.
Again, we talked about who this is for. I think if you're a wholesaler, landlord, buy and hold investor, realtor, lender, there's an opportunity to implement this strategy and model either on behalf of your sellers or on your buyers, either way. So that's number one. Number two, even though, like you said several times, this is not difficult, it's complex, remember this, really important. The only thing you need to do to be able to do this business is find the deal, analyze the deal, fund the deal, find the buyer. That's it. All the back end stuff, the note creation, the transaction management, it's all can be done for you. That's like you hire your accountant to do your taxes, or you hire a lawyer to do legal work. You're hiring a transaction manager to manage the transaction so it stacks the file correctly. It's not something you should be doing on your own. If that's what you think that you need to do because you're afraid to spend a few extra bucks on it, then I would highly recommend don't do the note to begin with. You're going to end up getting crushed because of the discount. Ask me how I know that, because that's how we used to do it. And we didn't do it, and we didn't follow best business practices. So the best thing you can do is go to bethebankblueprint.com and access, fill out the form, and then you'll get an email with all the goodies that we have to offer. Show you how to get on our Facebook group, okay, which is where we do our office hours live, usually once a week, and we do breakdown deals, deal or no deal. We have the modeling, so you'll also get a copy of the modeling software, which we always currently we're updating with new changes and things in it. You'll get a copy of that, and it'll show you how to use it, put your own deals in it, and see if it makes sense or not to do the deal structuring. Then also in there is you'll get access to the private Facebook group, like I said. You'll see the videos that we talked about, some of the educational videos that show us how we structure the deal. If you're interested in the digital product, it's there. It's also there to purchase, so you can learn how to do this stuff on your own. It's very important because it helps you learn how to structure and create the opportunity. And then lastly, the other stuff that's in there is there's some ebooks and some publications that we've written that sort of go in, that talk about the note buying experience. Eric's is on. It's called the $4.7 trillion secret. Guys, if you have IRA money and you want to use this to hold notes, you can buy mortgage notes and hold them in your IRA for cash flow. It's super easy to do and super valuable. I put all my friends and family in it because I love the fact that it's secured by the asset. You don't get that buying Tesla stock or Amazon stock. It goes down, you don't pick up the phone and call Elon and say, "Hey, bud, your stock went down 20%. I need to sell. Can you give me my money back?" The answer is absolutely no. Not going to get it. How's crypto treating you guys these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? It's not secured by anything.
Yeah.
So what we do on the note side, which I think is extremely important to understand, is very flat. It's very flat, very linear, right? It's the return is the return. If you got a 10% mortgage and a $100,000 note, the payment is the payment. Doesn't matter if inflation goes up or down. Doesn't matter if market goes up or down, because you're getting the same payment regardless. So it's been a real tough. It's been a real tough fight to validate that for the last 5 years, although it held its own. But now they're coming out of the woodwork. It's like, well, how do I get a return now? How do I protect my investment? Well, it's holding mortgage notes secured by real estate. That's how you do it. Now all of a sudden 8% is a good return, 10% is a good return, because they can't get it consistently through the market or wherever it might be. So anyway, food for thought.
No, tons of value right there. I mean, let Nick roll and he'll tell you it all. So this is the value that you get with working with a Nick Legamaro, Eric Sage, the creative financing and really getting into deal structuring, which is huge. And Nick, you pointed out something. We've had Newview Trust that's been on the show at one point talking about self-directed IRAs, the use of using your self-directed IRA. And I forgot that was another method of lending, right? Or using it for those kinds of purposes. That's huge. We just had Jacob, great, that people are just still asking questions. Any advice on brokering to get started in the note space?
Yeah, so brokering is another way. Brokering is very similar to wholesaling, right? You go find a note that you want to be able to buy or sell, add a fee on it, and sell it. Brokering is very similar to wholesaling. A lot of people do it. A lot of money to be made in it. We don't broker anything out that we have. Most of the stuff that we create, we already have it pre-sold. Either we're going to buy it ourselves, it's going to go into a fund. It could go on the open market, but we don't. It's usually the notes are sold direct to end buyer, whether it be a fund or a family office or something like that. We've been doing it such a long time. People really have a appetite for the type of paper we create, and that's what we do now. So we teach how to create it. So the byproduct is the same note, but it's created by you, for example, right? But it's under our tutelage and our jurisdiction and our protocol and our systems and our process that make the note the value that it is. Not because it says Al as the lender, is because they know the process that we put in place, creating a note that's highly desirable and will command and demand a premium price on it. So
nothing like experience right there. So you just
well,
take it from Nick right now. Nick, I told you they would be asking questions. I mean,
there was more.
I know on a roll. Dana, she says, I have a friend who is helping an investor sell a portfolio of single-family residences and duplexes. Seller needs the loan paid off, $2.7 million, and seller financing the rest, $649,000. Would you create a note for something like this? Do you need additional information to determine if this would be a good deal?
Well, I mean, it's all so the way it works is very simple. I can give you whatever price that you want for whatever it is, but you got to give me the terms I need back. Okay. And then the terms will dictate how the deal is going to go down. So in this question, I'm looking at it. Friend already investors sell a portfolio. So I don't, are they looking to sell it and then create notes on it? I don't know if that's the question or the notes have already been created. That would be my question.
Yeah, Dana, if you're still there, just go ahead, and if you got any more additional information, we're here right now. That would help a lot. And if not, if you don't have that stuff, that's when, feel free to be a part of the Facebook group. Ask these questions to Nick and Eric, because that's huge.
Yeah. So the question is, what is the portfolio? Is it a bunch of rental properties, or is it already notes? So yeah, if I knew that, I can answer that question. Yeah, but we can answer both ways. Let's assume it's a portfolio of single family homes that are. She said, no, they're not. No, they're not. What? They're not rentals, or they're not notes. I don't know.
Well, I guess like you said, go either way. Whether it applies to either one.
It doesn't matter if the loan is assumable. We don't care about that. All mortgage notes say that there's a due on sale clause, but we don't care about any of that. That is nothing. That is irrelevant in there. So they're rental properties. So the question is, if they're rental properties, the short answer is, we could buy something like that on terms. We could bring that cash on. That loan might not be assumable, but doesn't matter. We could still take over subject to and still create the opportunity and just pay it. We might accelerate the payoff on it. No, they're not notes, they are rentals. For me, I would take a rental and I would convert it to seller financing if it's the right asset, right? So when those leases expired, I would not put the renters back in them. I might sell them to the renters, but I'm going to create seller financing. I'm going to create the first note, second note, and pay off the underlying debt. So I don't know where these are. Where are these located, Dana? Where are these properties located?
I mean, this is great that we were able to actually go through the hypothesis and actually go through this scenario with Nick right now. I really appreciate everybody commenting. I mean, strong on the YouTube side as well. So if you got more questions like this for Nick, we are live. Ask away, because this is the kind of stuff that you just can't get watching any video. Like, you get the actual experience from the scenario. So if Dana, well, there she said Virginia.
Okay. There's a lot of things we just don't know. Like, what's the price point of these properties? What's the desirability? What's the demographics? What's rent value relative to ownership value, right? We haven't really talked about that, but if you're going to sell her on terms, if it rents for $1,000, but you need a seller finance for $1,500, is that a doable model, right? Or do you want it to be closer to the rent value, to be closer to well, here's what I would say. Dana says, well, they won't do a sub to either. Well, then guess what, Dana? Then I'm not your buyer. Okay, that's what I tell sellers all the time. I'm just not your buyer. Go find somebody else to buy it. But I could show them and teach them why they should at least consider what we're doing, because there's an installment sale. That's better than capital gains. And maybe we come to an agreement and go, look, let's leave the existing debt in place for a short amount of time so I can do what I need to do. Because if I don't have to go down to the bank and get a $1.2 million loan and go through all the underwriting and pay 3%, 3% or 3 points on the origination and 12% interest, right? And I can defer that or even avoid it. Hell, 3% on 1.2 million is what, $36,000 just in origination fees. Guess what? How about I just give that to you, Mr. Seller? You mean you won't let me keep that note there for 6 months for $36,000 more and make the payment? Yeah, what they say and what they get are two different things. Remember that. Okay? They may say that they want to do it, but here's the thing. Say no problem. If something changes, let me know. Because I'm a buyer. And I'll buy it on terms. And you'd be surprised how many people come back after the fact and go, hey, does your offer still stand? I go, I don't know. Let me look at it again. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But, if you want your price, I got to get my terms. There's no other way around it.
Right.
I'll pay you 100. I paid somebody 125% of value before. I paid them over what they were asking, over market value. I paid them 125% of the value. Why could I do that? Well, because I got the terms I needed to do the deal. It's that simple. I got 0% interest, and I got the payments where I needed to be. I got a substitution of collateral when I did it. I got a lot of stuff that we don't even have time to go into on this. I got a lot of stuff that was well worth it to me because guess what I got? I got a mortgage when I sold it to my buyer that paid me a lot of money on interest, and I've got all that money back 10 times over because of the fact that I created and structured it that way from the beginning.
Interesting.
So, what they say and what they do are two different things.
Yeah, it's got to make sense for you on your side of it too.
Yeah, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. Look, if they don't want to sell on terms, then fine. Then we're not their buyer, right? Especially right now, because it's a buyer's market right now.
Right, you can cherry pick what you want to do or where
you know what. And I don't want the deal. I mean, for me to give them the deal they would want, I'd be at 60 cents on the dollar probably. So we started talking about this before. I could pay 125%. Well, wholesalers have dropped from MAO of 82 down to 70. Okay, but my buy box hasn't changed. I'm still at 85, 90 cents on the dollar. Now I just open up how much more opportunity can I buy now because the wholesalers have dropped the rate that they're negotiating at. Right, huge spread. That's why we partner with wholesalers all the time to get deals done because they're doing all the heavy lifting and doing the negotiating. They already know, like the seller already knows, likes, and trusts them. I just come in and solve a problem, show them how to make a deal work when they thought it couldn't.
Yeah.
And most of the time we can. The buyer has to just the seller has to give us what we need for us to give them the price that they want.
Nick, I mean, talk about a really interesting topic when it comes to numbers and really breaking down the deal, but not just that, but what does the future look like? What are those numbers going to be like? And are you capitalizing on that and structuring it that way? So much to digest in that. And I really encourage everybody to join their Facebook group. Definitely, if you can get that PDF, it's a free PDF, right?
Yeah, everything. We don't charge for any of that stuff.
Yeah,
just on that stuff. And then if they want to learn more, then we have them, a digital product. They can go in and they can go buy it and learn more about it and educate themselves because education is the most valuable investment that you can make is, investing in your education and learning and understanding stuff so you can go make better decisions. It's not expensive. You just need to learn it and understand it and do it.
Yeah. And Jacob, the Facebook group is called Creative. Is it Creative Dealmaker?
On the screen right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Creative Dealmaker. So if you go to groups and search Creative Dealmaker, you should be able to find it. Answer a couple of questions, and then we'll get you added into the group and, start understanding how to structure these deals.
Yeah. And I see Jacob talking about getting in here a little late. I'll say this. Whether you jump in late or you're able to watch it in the beginning and then come back, it's so great that you're able to come in here and participate and ask Nick questions. I mean, if you jump in late like this, feel free. You can go back to the beginning, watch everything. Nick talked about so much. He actually did a whole bunch of calculations. I mean, so much value in something like this. Nick, I absolutely love all the value and golden nuggets you've been able to drop tonight. Huge. I don't even think we've had anybody on that's actually talked about like creative financing, deal structuring on terms. I don't think so. And
there's a lot of people out there that teach it, and they do a really good job of it. You can learn from some guys and people that are really, really knowledgeable in the creative space. What makes Eric and myself different than what everybody else teaches is the exit on how to stay in the deal to generate cash flow, cash now, cash flow, cash later, little to no risk, infinite ROI. That's the key to the whole thing. Most people will teach you how to acquire, for example, on terms or negotiate sub 2 or whatever it is, but you have to stay. They want you to stay in the deal, right?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that, and every property is different, but not every property is something you want to hold on to. You know, the houses that I talked about at the very beginning, I don't care. I don't want to own it. I don't want to own those houses and make them rentals. I just want to get my cash flow. That's just it. So I think everybody has to decide for themselves what their propensity for risk is, what kind of return that they want, and where they are in their real estate journey, on what their comfort level is, and how much crap they want to deal with. I don't want to deal with crap anymore. I don't fix and flip houses anymore like I used to. I've been there and I've done it. I don't hold anything anymore. I don't want to. I don't need to. All I want to do is be the bank, and that's all I do. I don't own stocks. I don't own crypto. The only thing I have in my portfolio are mortgage notes. That's it. That's 100%. Because I have a couple. I shouldn't say that. I do have some stuff in some retirement accounts that are more some commercial investments, but very, very, very little. I just want to note, because I know the power of amortization. I know what they're worth, and it's my model that I teach and I share, and hopefully if people got value on them, they want to give it a shot. They know how to get started.
Yeah, love it. And again, connect with Nick, and he talks all about this stuff. Again, you can join the Facebook group, all that stuff in there. We have Claudio. Claudio says, how do you create depreciation for taxes? I don't know if you want to get into that.
Well, first of all, I'm not a financial advisor, an accountant, definitely not an attorney. Okay. But think of it this way. If you have a house that you sell, I'm going to use a round number, $300,000. Okay. Okay. And you sell it, and it's an investment property. And let's say you bought it for $100,000 and you sold it for $300,000. You have capital gains of $200,000. Okay. Depending on what your tax bracket and rate is, you're going to pay tax on $200,000. However, if you sell that on terms, and let's just say that you sold it for $300,000 and you sold it over 30 years, 30-year term. Well, that in theory is $10,000 a year, right? So the taxable amount on your taxes is a $10,000, not the difference of the $200,000. Okay, follow me? It's a lot less tax. That's why it's called an installment sale. It's all in the IRS code. So you need to talk to your financial advisor, your accountants, or somebody like that, and help them explain it. But once you understand what that is and how to use it to your advantage when you negotiate on buying it from a seller, or how to use it in your advantage when you sell it, that's the value proposition there. So that's sort of
a little snippet. Yeah, little snippet right there. I mean, again, you're seeing it from the investor side too, so that actually really helps.
Get a lot of weeds on it because that's not who I am and what I do. But just seek out professional advice, as Al would tell you, I'm sure.
Disclaimer, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Definitely get with somebody that understands all of that when it comes to the tax world for sure. Because, I mean, but it's helpful to see it from the investor perspective, no doubt.
Really.
But Nick, this has been so valuable, so much knowledge, so much stuff out there. And we'll make sure we keep putting it out there. I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for being on, almost 2 hours strong.
I know.
Which is
Should we hold out another 7 minutes just to break the record, or
Oh
no?
yeah. No, the record is still Dave Day with 2 hours and 48 minutes. Yeah. We
I will
we
not.
do it
I will
down to
not be on for another record or no record. I'm not staying on another 47 minutes. Whatever
Yeah.
the number.
No,
Dave can have that one.
yeah.
Oh,
I think he wants to break his own record, I think. He hasn't said
I
it
can
yet.
do it again.
Yeah, he
Nice.
will, I'm sure.
Guys,
But really,
what else you
really
got? Anything else?
Yeah, really appreciate it. Love it. As I do with all the guests at the end of the show, final words, final thoughts, Nick Legamaro, Nick the Note Guy, on anything on terms, creative financing, let it rip.
I mean, I think the biggest piece of advice I can give to people in real estate, and only because I've been doing this for as long as I have, and I've built business, sold to the banks, still do what I practice what I preach. I tell people exactly how I do it and why I do it. Is that you have to invest in yourself from an educational perspective, regardless of what it is, and take advantage of the data and the resources that there. But more importantly, make sure the people that you seek help from, that they actually have the ability to do what they say they're going to do, and they can prove it. Okay, real important things. I mean, I don't just say I did the jobs. I did. I mean, my name has been on probably 1,000 closing documents. I do the deals, right? There's a lot of smart people out there, but it's important that you know them and that you can trust them. And a lot of the people are very, very good for that. And invest in it, and don't try to get too sideways. Don't get that squirrel, you know, you know, chasing the shiny object syndrome, right? Find what you like to do best, and let other people do the rest of whatever that looks like. And you don't need to do all this yourself. Find your niche and go after it, and you'll crush it, because it's just a deep blue ocean out there. And what we do and what we teach, I could tell 1,000 people today exactly how we do it, and it wouldn't impact our business one bit. In fact, it would probably have an inverse reaction on it. It actually probably would help us more than it would ever hinder us. So it's all about collaboration, not about competition, my opinion, when it comes to this stuff. And we're happy to help in that. And Al, I mean, what you do and what you provide the listeners and the viewers is a value. And now it's really up to them to go take action and figure out what that looks like for them personally.
Right. Absolutely. We put on all the amazing guests like Nick Legamaro, but if you want to take it to that next level where you really want to get into those deals, or you want to start figuring it out, this is where you learn. You learn from people like Nick and Eric. I mean, that's huge stuff. So Nick, you're the man. I can't wait to see you in Tampa. It's going to be a blast. I can't wait for that. So I just got to say thank you again for coming on live on the Al Nicoletti Show. You're the man.
Thanks for having me, Manny. Thanks for having me. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
I'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
All right. Wow. So much to unpack on an episode talking all about terms, creative structuring, and deals, and how just when you think that you're getting into things in the wholesaling side, that there's not just wholesaling or buy and hold, there's not all of that there's other ways that you can get creative with deals and doing deals on terms. But people hear about doing deals on terms, they think sub two. Right? They think about buying a deal subject to an existing loan, existing mortgage, but then still owning the property. And this was actually a little bit of a different side to how you could do it, where you're not just owning the asset, but you are controlling the loan, the way that it's operating. So you're not just buying the deal, but you're on the loan side of it, which is crazy. So tons to unpack from what Nick Legamaro talked about. And if you missed any of that, see, people may have jumped in late, like Jacob. You may have jumped in late. What's so great about the fact that this show just rolls and we go through all the questions, and YouTube was strong tonight. YouTube was really strong tonight. It was crazy. What's awesome about it is the fact that we want you, no matter what point, ask those questions and jump back, go back to the beginning when Nick was talking about his journey, calculating things. I mean, he literally took the calculator out and was breaking down an example of a deal on how powerful a deal on terms can be. So crazy stuff there. And like he was saying, something like this could get complicated, but when you start working with people like Nick and Eric, part of their whole team, their whole operation and their digital product, or really learning things off the PDFs and stuff like that, and their Facebook group, no better value than even just jumping in the Facebook group, being a part of it, participating, asking questions like you all do. Huge. And I saw Dana asked, is there a YouTube channel? Yes, there is the YouTube channel. I think we'll put it up one more time because it should be up right there. But there is that YouTube channel. We'll make sure Nick keeps posting those videos out there, and maybe he'll go live on that YouTube. I see him back there. But for everybody that's out there, I just want to say again, I mean, it's just another episode of tons of participation, tons of engagement. We love people watching like Dana and Claudio and Jacob. I mean, huge stuff, no matter what state you're in, right? I mean, that doesn't matter if deals can be done in those states. Of course, just check to make sure how things are done over there. But we love it. And Gio, and surprise of the night for me was the Roic that was watching. I love that. And Reginald, Kevin, Gio, I'll just say we love the participation. We always want this. We want people to ask questions, especially when we have high-powered caliber guests like Nick Legamaro. And it's a wrap tonight, everybody. I mean, tons. If you missed anything, go back from the beginning under Al Nicoletti on the YouTube channel. It was on Facebook. And eventually the episode will drop on Spotify and iTunes. And of course, the micro will drop out. We're going to get some new micro out there. We'll get some cool new stuff coming out about the show. So make sure you go check that out. And of course, you can check out all the stuff on the Al Nicoletti channel, which is on YouTube. And you can see things on probate, partitions, all the weird stuff in the real estate world. Don't forget to check that out as well. And again, love you all out there. Thank you so much for watching the show tonight. We will be on back next week, Wednesday. Make sure you set a reminder. Set your reminder on your calendar. I mean, take out your phone. If you love guests like this, put it in the calendar. Just make sure you hit reoccurring. So every Wednesday, unless there's all of a sudden one Wednesday we have a best of or a change up in the schedule. But make sure just keep it on your calendar because you don't want to miss this when you can get great value like this. And I will say, I will see you all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern, live. And it's a wrap. I'll see everybody soon. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.